Okay, so we just covered some different special variables. So now I want to talk about loops and logic. So we'll do a lot more of this kind of stuff with Python, but you can do some basic logical structures and loops in Bash. So there's a for loop and then an if then kind of control structure. So the for loop is you say for some variable in this list, do something and then be done. So to do that, you can just follow along. So we're going to type for. I like to use I as like an index number. So for I in 1 dot dot 3, and we're using curly braces or curly brackets here, and there's no spaces in between those numbers. We're going to hit enter, and then it's going to bring up a prompt. So the shell knows that we're not done typing the command. So we're going to type do and hit enter, and we're going to type echo $I. We don't need to indent, although typically when we put it in a file, we will indent before the command. Echo $I, and then we type done. And so now it's going to print or echo the value for I. So what happened was it says for I in 1 to 3. So first I is going to be stored as 1. So I is a variable. It's going to execute some command. So it's going to echo the value of $I. And then it's going to go through the loop again. And now I is going to be 2. And so it's going to echo the value of $I, which is now 2. And then I will be 3. And it will echo that, and it will be 3, and then it's done. So we could, there's a lot you can do with this. This is just an example to show how it works, but you can automate a lot of functionality this way that comes in handy later on. And we'll see more about how this sort of notation works below. Question?
How to control the steps that you present? Like here, the step is 1. How can I control the steps?
Right. So I'll talk about that in a minute. You're gonna see that this notation goes from 1 to 3, so it's going to be 1, 2, 3. But you can go from A to Z, or you can also change. You can also just do. So we don't need those braces actually. So notice I hit the up. So one thing I just did was I'll delete all this. If I hit the up arrow, it'll show the last. Oh, it's not doing. Oh, because I deleted it. Anyway, I deleted that row, so it's not working. But if I type the up arrow, if I type the up arrow, I should get the last command, but I deleted it. So anyway, I can retype it. So I can do for I in 1, 3, 7. So in this case, effectively, and I'll show this in a minute, what the braces 1 dot dot 3 brace does is it expands to 1, 2, and 3 with a space between them. So if I wanted to just do 1, 3, and 7 instead, I could just type it like that. I'll show you more examples in a minute. So the other control structure I wanted to cover really quickly is an if else, or if then else style statement. So we're going to instead of typing, let's copy and paste. So we can copy that whole section, Command C, and then type Command V, and you can see the way we copied it. it ends right after the I. So if you'd copied it like that, it would have a new line after it, but this doesn't have a new line. So when I paste it, it stops right there. So it actually gives me a chance to decide if this is what I want, but I'm happy with this, so I'm going to hit enter. And so it just executed that whole block of code. We also could have typed it out manually. So what this is doing is it's saying if, and then there's some test in this. There's some sort of, yeah, I shouldn't call the directory test because it's what it is actually doing is a test. Call it temp instead next time. So it's actually seeing, does that directory exist? So if that directory called test exists, this little -d will evaluate as true. Then it will print directory exists. But if it doesn't, it will make the directory and then quit. So if we type ls, we now have a directory called test in our home. If we type ls-l, you can see that indeed this test directory is a directory because it has this little d there. Now if we run that command again, you can see that when I type the up arrow, I'm getting some extra space here based on how it was typed, but that's fine. It will just ignore that extra white space. So does anyone know what's going to happen when I run this again? Anyone have a guess? What's that? Yeah, right. It'll print instead of making the directory, it'll print directory exists. Now, does anyone know why we would want to make a loop like this? What happens if I were just to type now, make directory test? It's going to give me an error, right? So you don't want let's say this is part of a script, you don't want to have an error in your script because it'll make everything else not run. So this is a way you can test or check if that directory exists. If it does, don't do just print it. You can print or not print. You can just put a command that doesn't do anything. That's basically what this is. But if it doesn't exist, then it will make the directory. So it's a nice way to check. Don't try to create it until you're ready to create it. Okay. So the next thing I want to cover is running a bash script. So we can copy this text here, and let's do let's copy that, and then let's do nano example.sh. So this is going to create a file called example.sh and open it up in Nano, and then we can type Command V to paste that text, and then we have these little instructions at the bottom, so we can exit. We can hit Control X to exit, and now it'll ask us if we want to save. We say yes, so we type Y. You can just type a lowercase y, and we'll say, do you want, what do you want to call it? It already knows what to call it, so we'll just hit enter. So now, if we just type cat example.sh, it will print that command that we just entered. So now the cool thing is that we can run bash as a command. So bash isn't just a shell, it's also a program. So we can type bash example.sh, and it will run this script for us, and it will just print the output to the screen. So we could do the same thing with the second one. So we can copy that. Oops. Copy that. We could type, this time we can do cat. Remember, be careful, but we can type cat example2.sh. This is a cat with a redirect to this file. So now we're going to do it directly in the window. And I always like to add a new line after the script, so I end on a new line, and then hit Control C. This will exit out of that where I'm writing to the file. And now I can, again, to see the file, I can type cat example2.sh, and I can see what I just did. And now I can run it. So I can type bash example2, and it's going to say directory exists. So if I wanted to, now I want to see what happens if that directory doesn't already exist, I could remove directory test, and now if I run it again, I don't get that message, and I've now recreated that directory. So that's what you call a bash script, and that's incredibly useful. So any of the kind of commands that we've covered can be used in a script, and this is where being able to store things as variables and to do these loops and that kind of thing becomes really handy. Yeah, question?
How did you save your cat example?
Yeah, so to save it, you just hit cancel, which is the Control C. So it seems maybe it's counterintuitive. It doesn't. Here's where you get into trouble, though. If you made a mistake, it's too late. It's already kind of, as far as I know, I don't know a way to like undo that. So you want to be careful. You don't want to, try to append, try to cat to your PhD thesis or something like that. That would be bad. So, be careful with this. It's very handy, but it's also very powerful. So just be careful. I probably shouldn't be teaching you these dangerous things, but you gotta grow up someday. So the other one that's kind of related is source. So when we edited our .bash profile, you can make that file run when you start a new terminal. But another thing you can do if you don't want to open up a new terminal is you can just type source. So you could type source tilde.bash profile, and that will run that command. And actually, if we do that, I think if we type echo path, yeah, you'll see now the path is now much longer because effectively we just like appended our path to the path. So we now have two copies of the path. So this doesn't actually matter. It won't affect how your computer functions. You just now have everything is in there twice, basically. So typically you're not going to do this. You don't need to run this. It's run automatically for the .bash profile. But let's say there might be another file that you want to source that basically runs it on your system.